All right, so basics of Python automated unit testing. So some house rules. Ask questions on chat during the talk. I have my phone right here and I'm ready to, what's this called? To answer your chat in real time. Okay lang na matadlist tayo for comments. But for the benefits of our international friends, listeners, I'll be speaking in English. And made some noise in chat. How do we start this slide? Right, about this talk. Okay. We're just going to focus on the basic of automated unit testing. So we're not going to do deep. And this is aimed for beginners and those looking to apply unit testing. Aside from the Python code, this talk should be accessible to other programming languages. Like I said earlier, this is not a deep dive. We're going to talk about how to apply unit testing. Yes, thank you, Sir Bob, for the noise. The link to the talk and code will be shared later. As mentioned earlier, my name is Sony Valdez. I can be found on Twitter at Mr. Valdez. I am a Python and C++ programmer. I play a lot of games. I'm a nerd. And I swear, I am mostly harmless. What is automated unit testing? It is code that automatically tests your software for you. It is code that checks if previously fixed bugs come back. So, it is also a metric for the development progress on software specification. Let's go for each one. The first one, code that automatically tests your software for you. We've been there as developers. We do test our code almost every day. Something breaks, we try to fix it. We send it to our beta users, to our alpha users, to our testers. They find problems, and they tell you, please fix this bug. With automated unit testing, you can just write the code that tests the software. So no need to have somebody look into your program. They don't need to, they don't need to bother you. And if you did your code very well, you then go back, or rather, code that you created before, unit tests that you created before, then also apply in future. So even if your testing is from the beginning of your project, it can still be useful later. It is also a metric for development progress. So I'm sure everybody has been given specification on how the project, how the software is supposed to work. And sometimes it feels as if you don't find the end to the development. It's as if you're still working on stage 1 or stage 2 or iteration 1, iteration 2, and you don't feel that you're finishing the software. With automated unit testing, you then simply, the software then tell you, hey, you're 50% done, 80% done. You're almost there. Proof that code is working as intended. Or the software bug stays down. And there's a sense of achievement. We will be using the Python unit test library. Now, there are many unit testing frameworks, but since unit test is in the standard library, it comes bately included with Python if you install it. That's why a lot of frameworks such as Django will use this as the default. Does automated unit testing work for all types of software? It works on a lot of software, even if you do not have the code for that. So there was a time when I was brought in to test a server, or rather to create code for a server. And I basically created unit tests to test a specific function on that server. So yeah, you can use Python automated unit testing for all types of software. Front end, back end, UI, web development, and so on. Yes, this is now the techie hour. Thanks, Erwin. Now, unit test is similar to Java's JUnit. So, if you were to do a crossover work with Java or another programming languages that is less than JUnit, it's easy to switch language. It applies. Here we go, live coding. We will be making a test for a simple program. Emphasis on the simple. We will not focus on how the program works. I'm pretty sure everybody in chat would react on how basic the program is, but our focus would be on the test. And let me know if the window is too small. So I'm assuming everybody would see this. I have codes here. Paste drag. Test. And the main program. Let's see. Hide. Okay. So I'll show everyone what a basic test looks like. Is Python programming somewhat similar to MATLAB code? I'm not familiar with MATLAB, so I cannot say, but I believe there's a Python library that is similar or copies MATLAB style of coding. Matplotlib, yes. So Matplotlib is the library that is similar to MATLAB. If you know MATLAB, you can do Matplotlib. Back to the code. So I forgot to bring out our specification. Where is that? This is the program that we're going to create a test on. It is a program that can create an entry to a database with their name and post. Basically a CRUD or trade, read, update, delete program. It is the fundamentals of programming. The user then read a specific post. The user then read all posts, delete, save to this, and load from this. Try to imagine this in a real-world scenario. You go to a client and they give you specs, or you talk over what the specs are supposed to be, and you come up with something like this. So as you can see, we're just simplifying the 6 simple specs, simple unit, which is all of this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, this is 5 and 6. And this is 4. Yeah. So what does a unit test look like in Python? Or rather, what unit test looks like? Simply like this. You have a class, call the class something like test, and then maybe the name of your application, or maybe specs or something. And inherit from unit test, that test case. Let me know if you can't read the text or check out on live chat. Let's run the code. And we have 6 failures. What this is trying to tell us is we failed all of the specification that we created. Granted, we did that on purpose. When we're creating tests, we need to first make sure that it fails, like what we did right here. And then we what's this called? Make the test for this specific. We made the code for this specific test. Before continuing, I need to show you what our app looks like. So our app is just this, as simple as we can, because our focus is on testing. We have a post which says ID, the author, and the at-where post. We have here the app, and the app has a constructor, add post, dead post, dead all post, dead post, delete, save, and load. If we look at our specs, okay, so this is the 1:1, 1:1 to our specs. Add, I added backward, give me a sec. There we go. So dead post, number 2, dead all posts, delete, save, and load. I would probably use this to check students' lab code. Yes, yes, Derwin. So one of the things you can do with automated unit testing is to create a way to check code for your students. I did this before, and well, they were kind of surprised that a computer was grading them instead of me. They just submit their code, and I tell them you got 70 something. Going back, what do we want with our add post? So this is our testing, and we want to first create an instance of our app. I think I imported, yes. And then from here, we need to create a example post that we're going to put into the app. So parameter is, it's going to be the author. We're gonna use our friend Anonymous and a post. Hello world. And we're going to add that post. What happens here is this dictionary will be converted into parameters which will be passed to add post. How do we test that post is successful? Well, we then have add post return the at-where post, and then we're going to assert. Assert is the key to unit testing. So we need to assert that post that author is equal to param author. And the same goes for the post. So this is the simplest post that we can, simplest unit test we can do for our spec. Before I continue, I need to talk about assert equal. Where is my, here we go. Assert equal, we need Python library for unit tests. You see, the secret to being a programmer is to always have your documentation ready. Wow, live test-driven development. Well, that's how I roll. So here are the different assert that Python unit test uses. There's more, but let's focus on just a few. Here is assert equal. If A is not equal to B, it will return as a fail. Same with not equal, true, false, is, and so on. There are more, of course. There are less than, greater than, races, warnings, logs, assert that you get an exception, and so on. So we have this test. Notice that we made the test first before making our application. One of the things that you need to know about test-driven development is the idea that you make the test first without the implementation. That way, you can be sure that the implementation is correct. The unit test is there to test, to make sure that your code follows the specs. I hope that made sense. It made sense in my head, but nobody lives in my head. If we run this code, or rather, if we run the test, we can see that it has failed. Test add post has failed as an error. It's going to be very inconvenient to see all of this when we're just interested in one. So I'm going to fail fast. It means as soon as there's a failure, the automated unit test would stop. Our error is on line 14, which makes sense because, where is line 14? This one. Add post returns nothing. We haven't started making our code yet. So let's do that. We already made the test for add post, and we're going to make the implementation of the application. Again, our focus is on the test. So if you don't like how I coded this application, well, I'm going to upload this on GitHub and play. You all then play with it. So we need a post that takes the author and the post. We need the ID, and ID should just go up and return the post. And we're going to append the post here. So then we're trying to be as simple as we can. All this does is add these two to a database. Let's try it. How did that fail? Well, I didn't mean to do this, but hey, at least that's how live coding works. Expect bugs. We're here to learn. We're not afraid of bugs, right? So it says here that this is author, and the second is anonymous. So author is not equal to anonymous, so there is a fail. Let's do a debug. Param, anonymous, author. Why does it not work? Param, author. That's weird. Oh, did I miss a asterisk? There we go. So we succeeded. I then show that I succeeded by going to verbose. So this is verbose. And you can see that we passed the first test. We then add post. For the benefit of others who did not see the bug earlier, if you use asterisk, it returns the keys for the dictionary. If you did it as asterisk asterisk, then this converts the dictionary into this. So this is the asterisk asterisk param. Basically, the key is sent for the parameter name, and the value is sent as a value for that parameter. It's a subtle bug, but hey, this is proof why we need automated unit testing. I forgotten about this, and this is my safety net. Let's continue. Delete post. Let's make a delete post. So how do we do this? Well, we need to add post. So we can take this and then have the app get the post. How do we do this? Self app delete post. Post ID. Sorry, it's delete. Get post ID. All right, so what does delete post do? Trade an app, trade this parameter, and add that as a post, delete that post, and make sure that we did a non-existing post. So let's give that a try. Uh, that's not right. Okay, I see the problem. Um, Basically, we get the post and we did not put any check if that post exists or not. So the way I did that was for this example, if the post is missing, it's going to generate an exception called post not found. I'm pretty sure you as a programmer would think of a better way of developing this, of telling the API, having the API return not found. But for the purpose of teaching test-driven development, I made it as an exception. Pun intended. How do we do this? Self-uttered raises card post not found. So what this does is, if that post doesn't raise this exception, it would return as an error. So post not found is expected to be not raised. Remember, we haven't developed the implementation for delete or get post. By the way, let me know on chat if I'm talking too fast. So I have a tendency to do that. Let's let's focus on get post. Oh, good. Thank you, Andre. So I could start with delete, but I want to start with get post because we haven't implemented delete yet. So if we implemented delete first and then get post, we will see that it would pass. This test would pass if we started with delete first, the implementation for delete. This is a roundabout way of demonstrating how assert trace is used. If I was doing this development normally, I wouldn't start with get post. I would start with delete, maybe. But let's do with delete with get post. For post in self data, if post ID is equal to ID, return the post. Otherwise, raise the exception post not found. So this is as simple as I can. And let's see. Post found not raised. That's strange. Oh, right. No, it makes perfect sense. Because this ID exists. I can prove that it exists by changing the post to something else. Like let's say 2813. And the post not found was raised because 2813 doesn't exist. Let's implement the delete. So for post in self data, if post ID is equal to ID, self.data remove the post and then return. So once the code finds the post, simple remove. And there we go, it passed. But that was a little bit unsatisfying. Give me a sec. I know that you can see that it works, but I want to prove that it works by putting a breakpoint. For those who are learning Python, breakpoint is amazing. This is outside the scope of the talk, but if you have the time, check out breakpoint. This is from Python 3.7, I believe, onwards. And for Python 3.7 below, you use import pdb, that's it. Nice breakpoint. Thank you, Erwin. Anyways, let's put a breakpoint here. There we go, breakpoint here. And we can see that this haven't run. We can check the data inside self.app and we can see it's empty because it has been deleted by this line. Q is for tweet. We're done with delete post. What's next? That invalid post. Okay. Oh, wait, before we go there, we're programmers. And lazy, and we don't want to repeat things over and over again. Earlier, I copied this, and pasted it here. And am I supposed to do it again over here? That's going to be a lot of code. What then we do is to use setup. Unit test has a setup and a tear down. Setup runs before running the test, and tear down happens afterwards. Why is this useful? Because we can just copy and there we go. So all of these tests now has a self.app and a self.param. So we wouldn't be repeating our code over and over again. Let's go back to the get invalid post. We need to assert braces that if you put a invalid post, nice breakpoint thing. Yeah, give me a sec. Sorry, my YouTube disappeared. Anyways, we're going to dead post 2814. It's just a random number. No need to look it up. Param is not defined. Here. So that invalid post now succeeds. We're just doing it simple. If doesn't exist, assert that it traces. Press low for that post. This is over here. How do we want to do this? We need to create a post and then that post post ID and assert equal retrieve post we're asserting that the post that we added we then retrieve and it should be equal. We run this as expected, it's going to fail. Wait, why did it pass? Oh, something's not right. Oh wait, no. I'm sorry. Problems of live coding. I did it backwards. I should have implemented get post first. Anyways, hey, here's another lesson. Sometimes the code that you're making already exists, and you just need to make a test. That is very normal. Sometimes you go into a project that the code is already there, and they just hired you to do the unit test, or you want to apply unit tests, apply what you've learned today to already existing code. So you can do it something like this. I need to be sure that this, what I just said is true. I want to double check. All right, tell me the retrieve post. There we go. I see a bug. Anyways, I'll go back to that in a bit. The author is anonymous and hello world. If we look at the post, it's exactly the same. I've noticed a bug. For some reason, ID is built-in function ID. We'll take a look here. It's because adding a post. I see. So in Python, ID is a function. So we are putting the ID of the function ID that is being put into the post instead of the ID that we're supposed to have, numeric ID. So this would work. This would fix that bug. See, we now have 0. But there was a bug, and we fixed it first. What should we have done first is create a test. Let's just call this test bug. B is not added to post, something like this. So there's a bug where the ID is not added to post, and we're just going to assert is instance. Assert is instance. So post ID is supposed to be an integer. Did I get this right? We'll see. But ID. Okay, so built-in ID is not an instance of class integer. So we created a test for that specific bug. And then if we fix that bug, it's not here anymore. Verbose. There we go. So it's okay. So this is one way to create tests for bugs. Because of this specific test, I am confident that months from now, years from now, or the worst case, somebody else touches my code, I'm pretty sure that this bug would not come back. Well, I say that, but hey, bugs are magical beings. One time, you think there's just one, but apparently there's two. They multiply if you look hard enough. Let's see now. We're going to work on. Wait, I better take out the break. Yes, it is funny. So we roll. So to saving and loading. So how do we do this? Well, first, we're going to create a lot of posts. Let's put in 2,814 chapters of posts. And we're going to keep our own database of the posts that we added. Of the data.append posts. And then we're going to have the app save. Then have the upload. And then confirm that there are 2,814 posts inside data. Or rather, inside the data of app. has to be for I in range. No, for date for post in self.data. We should try to get the post for that ID, and it should not raise a bug. It should not raise. So if sorry about that. So we have a list of data, 2,814. The fun thing about computers is they don't care how many times you made them do things, they would still do it regardless. We save, we load, and then we double check. Okay, we just did the post and made sure that we do not raise any post not found. And it failed. No, sorry. It succeeds, but are we really sure it succeeded? Remember, we haven't implemented save and load yet. So this succeeded because the data is still exists inside self.app, and doing save and load does nothing. In short, this test can be written better. Remember earlier when I said that if you're making a test, you make sure it fails first if the implementation haven't been developed yet. This is one of the reasons why. So how do we test this? We create a new app, a new instance of the app, and then we load that. And that's what's going to receive the post. So this is why object-oriented programming is very useful. You can create multiple instances of something, of an app or a class that you're testing. And I failed. Capital letter A. That was a, what's this called? Naming convention. It's just a naming convention. If it's an instance, it's small letter. If it's a class name, it has to be capital. There we go. So this test would raise a post not found because the post wasn't saved and it wasn't loaded. So let's do that. Let's implement save and load. I just realized that we haven't got any. Yeah, get all posts isn't here. Okay. We're going to implement that later. Going back, we need to save. So how do we save? We just create a file. Let's call it records.csv. That's F. And then go to Google and search on how to do CSV. Because it's impossible for a programmer to memorize everything. So you need to know where to find code. There's code everywhere. You just have to know how to look. We need the right. I want the dictionary. There you go. So the dictionary writer. Another clue for everyone. Learn to use your IDE. So I use Notepad for one good reason, or rather two good reasons. First reason is it's very friendly when I'm teaching. No need to focus on IDE settings. And number two, it has transparency mode. So I can do something like this. So with open record CSV, I'm not even sure if this is showing on YouTube. I'm putting of it. F writer So field names first. Field names is equal to ID, author, and post. Then we create the writer within the field names. Also notice that I'm typing instead of copy pasting. I do it this way so I would have an idea on what I'm typing in. I then change it on the fly as I write in the code. Also, it's good exercise for the hands. For post in set of data, writer right row as a dictionary for the post. I believe I have no CSV imported. I have it imported. All right, let's give it a try. Run and expect to fail. There we go. But we generated the records.csv. And if we look at records.csv, it's basically a CSV of the record that we created. That is saving, and now we load. So this is the dictionary for loading. Reader, this is the dictionary reader, and F, and for data in reader, this would return the dictionary. So self.add post, and we need the ID, the author, and the post. Okay, we have the save, we have the read, we have the save, we have the load. Again, we're simplifying, we're just focusing on the unit tests, but in a normal project, you would use databases to save. So let's take a look. And it failed because add post states 3 additional but 4 were given. I forgot. So add post doesn't actually include the ID. And we should append this to the post. And it should work. Wait, no? What am I missing? So line, yeah, it's still there. Well, here comes the breakpoint. So show me the post. It's ID 0. I see the problem. It's returned as a string, and it should be an integer. Run. There we go. So saving and loading now works. Let's go to get our post. This was the test that was missing from earlier. And I can see how to do this. I just need to get 2814. Now, I know I said earlier that we should minimize copy pasting, but I'm now lazy. It's almost 9 o'clock. What we should do is confirm that there are 2814 posts. Okay, I done it. Get all posts and just confirm that there are 2814 created. Okay, so as expected, we haven't generated the implementation for get or post. So there's a error. Let's go to the implementation, get or post. This just basically return self.data. And then we pass. So get or post now works. Again, we're focusing on the test, so I'm sure you as a developer would be using a database to extract all of the posts and maybe filter out the depending on the user if they have access to that specific piece of data. Before continuing, any questions from the chat? All right, so I'll just continue. There is a bug here, which is what happens if you load the code, the application twice. Where's that? So here's the test. So what happens if we load it twice? Where's the dead or post? That. So what should happen is up to the application and then load. So have the first app save and then load, and then assert that there are only 2,814 posts. Take a look and it passed. But if we load it twice, it should fail. Wait, what? Okay, why did it succeed? Okay, load it should load, it would add the post. Okay. I put that bud in on purpose, and apparently that bud fits itself. Doesn't make sense. I'm loading from the original app. All right, so save on the first app, and then on the second, you get all the posts. But the second app would load twice. It should fail. There it is. It failed. It received 11,256. How did that happen? It's a bug. I don't want to think of the mysteries on why that happened. I thought it's a theme in VS Code. It's Notepad 2. Love it. Thank you, France. I hope I pronounced that right, Fritz. Anyways, so loading twice fails. It's a bug because we are appending more data to loading and then appending it to data. So what we should do is clear our own buffer. Again, this is done for simplicity's sake. Let's see now. Why does it fail? It's not. Okay, load once and then load twice. This is a job for breakdown. Okay, up to is empty. There are 5,628. I got it. I've noticed that the number is increasing because if we look at our records, there are 2,815 records. If I run the test, because it's saving over that, where is that? I see records. That's weird. Okay, yeah, this is a real bug. Let's go step by step. So load data in the buffer. all of the data from the reader. Naman. That's strange. What's 814? We saved that. There should be 2814 on the save. So self up data. How many were saved? There are 2814, but under up to there are 5628. It's doubled. So 2814 times 5208 is might do in 2814 times 2 is 5628. Yeah. So saving doubles? That's strange. Oh wait, no, I got it right. Let's see. No, we did clear that. I have 5 minutes. Session will have the Q&A soon. Yes, I better finish this then. Why are you doubling? Post at post appended. I see. At post already adds the post into the buffer, into the self data, and then we add this. That's why it was doubling. So if we continue this, it should no more bugs. Although we have 100% unit tests. Now, notice I did the backend. Where is that? So this is the backend. And from practice earlier, I know that we do not have time to create a front end. So this is our front end. Later, once you have access to the code, you can play around with it. But basically, if I do python.main.py, I then, why did I do that? So I then delete a specific post and then try to look for that post, one not found, add who's the author, Sony Valdez, and I don't know what the last number is. Records, let's see. It did not save. Okay, add new, Sony, hello world, all, no, hello PH community. And then save. So this should be number 2814. There we go, 2814. And we can see the records is saved as expected. I need to finish the presentation. If you have any question on what happened on the entire thing, just ask on chat. If you have multiple unit test suites, you can use this. So just as an example, let's test.py should become test2.py. We basically double the test and run in python-m, sorry. There we go. Command prompt also has transparency. Unit test discover, and it's going to look into your directory for all tests, those that starts with tests. So we have 8 tests, and we duplicate it, so there are 16 tests. And there's something called code coverage. This basically shows how much unit tests your code has. I need to do this fast as I see the time. Come on. Fine. Coverage, run sm unit test discover. So it's going to run all of the unit tests. Coverage report So this is the report. We can see that prod.py is 100% covered. Or you can output this as HTML, would be here. So Explorer, HTML code, the index. And here we go. So you can see that all the greens means that there's a test for that specific line. And for this test, there's no test covering this specific line because it's red. When do we trigger the test? Anytime we want, before accepting a pull request. So there is in your version control, there's something called a hook. So you put there the unit test, the code, you put there the command to test, to activate all the tests. And then if it fails, you don't accept the pull request or push or commit before making a release, and maybe daily or weekly. In your current work, how fast is your unit tests usually run? Depends on how well I develop that test. So this test is actually slow. If this test that we develop right now is slow, run in 3.9 seconds, because we are writing to this. That slows down the test. Remember, one of the slowest parts of programming in a program is reading to input-output, either hard disk or over the network. Well, we do not have time for mock testing. So in summary, allow you to test the behavior, not the implementation. The problem with our current tests is every time we run it, we change something in the environment. We basically create a new file. Using mock testing, instead of saving into file, you can save it into an I/O buffer, and that's what you use. And sometimes you need to make the test while the implementation is under development. Does a unit test strip deserve its own branch? My opinion, the unit test should be in the same branch as mine. The same branch. Additional reading. So we're almost done. I recommend testing on the toilet series. I know it sounds funny, toilets, sure. But it came from Google, so laugh at Google. Testing on the toilet is a blog that Google posted out, and it's basically best practices for unit testing. So let's just go to Java, anything here, see? So when and how to use Modito answer, there's a lot here. There's a lot. So how they use unit testing on fedets, and so on and so on. It's a very valuable. Look up mock testing. Unfortunately, we do not have time for that. Dependency injection is also very important. And yeah, any questions from the chat or requests? I'm going to up this later. In the interest of time, I'm going to upload this GitHub after this session. So you should see it right here. I should copy this on to, sorry for the mirror. Okay, so let's see now. Okay, questions for everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Valdez. Ang daming tumatak sa akin sa mga sinabi mo. Lalo na yung bugs are magical creatures. Sobra talaga relate doon.
Ayan mo. Yeah, they are born pregnant. So you see a bug, there's another one somewhere.
Tama. At gusto ko lang din talaga isingit na ibang klase yung tapang mo na mag-live coding sa event natin. Hindi lang mag-live coding, guys, nagla-live debugging siya. Ibig sabihin, hindi siya matakot magkamali. Sana may ganun din kaming confidence lahat mag-dev at mag-unit test ng applications namin. So before we move on to more questions that we might have, from YouTube. Baka, Doc, may gusto kang i-shout out o i-plug ng mga projects mo?
Right now kasi yung mga projects ko is under NDA kaya hindi ako pwede mag-share. Shout out na lang sa PyCon Philippines. So they were very helpful. And I just nakita nyo naman yung cert ko. This is PyLadies Manila. So we try to, ang tawag dito? We try to promote as much as we can with the local communities. Buhay testers. Yeah, they are born pregnant, right? What the?
Ayan guys, you heard it from Sony Valdez himself. So I would like to confirm if we do still have any questions remaining. Otherwise, we can proceed with the rest of our program.
Any questions? Does automated unit testing? I answered that earlier. So automated unit testing, you can test any software. So kahit na front end, sorry, had to be English for our international speakers. Even front end, even video games can be unit tested. I believe it's Slate Spire is the video game that I know that does automated unit testing. What is your preferred interpreter or compiler? Well, for Python, it's CPython because it's there. I do not need performance. And if I need performance, I actually do work on C++. Live coding, I can't do it. Nah, you're just that used to it. Once you do live coding once, you have confidence. And I know you also earlier that there were a lot of bugs during during the live coding. It's part of our work. There's no need to be afraid of that.
Ito, we have another question. If you were to do automated unit testing, what other programming language would you use? Maliban daw sa Python. So ano yung pipiliin ni Mr. Python Philippines na alternative sa Python?
Sabi na, what other programming language I would use? Medyo specific siya eh. Sorry, give me a sec. Mag-google ako kasi hindi ko sila yun. So there's a automated unit test called Selenium. It's used to test web pages. So that's one. Another is my memory is bad. Give me a sec. Google Let Hypothesis is a something called my memory is bad. Okay, there's a testing library, automated unit testing library that randomize all the data that you put in. So doon sa code ko, in my code earlier, the data was, we put in the data, right? Anonymous and then hello world. So this type of automated unit testing randomize the data. So pwedeng pumas integer then go in, string then go in, Unicode then dead in. That's a lot. JS, hehe. Yeah, JS has also have unit testing. You know what? It's bothering me a lot. What we call this type of unit testing that is randomized?
Kaya mo yan, Doc. Kaya tayo may Google.
Yeah, I'm looking at Google right now. Nako, pahiya ako. Faker? What's it, Faker? Waiting to Faker generates fake data. I think it's Faker, but I can't remember exactly. Okay, I watched a video on. I watched a unit testing video. That's why there was the other automated unit test. Yeah, probably Faker. So that's looking at the.
In the interest of time, I'm sure na it's somewhere in the back of your head kasi ang dami mo ng na naturo sa amin. So we really would just like to extend our thanks to you and to PyCon Philippines for loaning us your knowledge. Thank you for gracing us with your unit testing ability. And do you have any final words to share with the PH Tech Week community?
Yes, everyone, play more video games. Or games. Play more games.
Ayan, you guys heard it from the man himself, Dr. Sony Valdez from PyCon Philippines. Thank you so much again, and we hope to see you soon in a separate event. So again, play more video games, guys. Yun pa rin yung sagot.
Tayo ng
Ganun
board
tayo
game.
level up as programmers.